Hello, everyone. Yay, we made it. We made it. Happy Tuesday, episode 6 of Untangled. So excited to be here with you guys. Woohoo! You made it live, Paula. Good to be with you. Hi, Inner Stillness from Belgium. Glad you're with us. Hi, Jamie. Sweet Fairyish, Ashley, Aaron, Zakaria, Irina, Kat. Hi, Kat. Mike. Good morning, you guys. Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are on this planetary body. I'm really happy to be here with you guys again for another episode. Um, yeah. So before I get started, I just want to thank you all for your support, um, for joining me every single episode. Also for all of your support for the Divine Design. So we sent out, it became available for pre-order last Tuesday. Um, and so many of you from around the world have been pre-ordering the book. So I just wanted to thank you in advance for continuing to support me and supporting the book, The Divine Design. And if you haven't ordered it, you can pre-order it on Amazon. Really excited to get it out there to the world. Very, very excited. So before I get going with what I'm going to be talking about today, it's sort of story time today. How are you guys doing? How is everyone feeling? Glad you made it live, and welcome. Hi, Wes. Welcome. I hope you're able to get in to the community. It is available on Amazon UK. There's like a handful of online bookstores that you can purchase it if you're in Europe. You have a bad cold. Partner stuff has me down. Overwhelmed, strong energies. Hi, Scotland. Crabby. Feeling bored. Not feeling well physically. Loving the rainy season in Costa Rica. Feeling lost. He did that ritual. The Cartsy B spell, the Cartsy B ritual. Okay. So relaxing in bed, feeling empty, emotional, all kinds of stuff we're feeling. We're going through it. We're going through it. Welcome to our evolution in consciousness. So I had no idea what I was going to share with you guys today, what was going to come up. And per usual for me, it always kind of pops in at the last moment. And I was sitting in meditation this morning, just going over some intentions that I'm holding for myself. And I just got this huge, like loud message that said, share your twin flame story. And I was like, oh, hell no. No, we ain't going there. And and the guidance was like, share your twin flame story. And so I've never spoken about this. The only people that really know about this story are people that are really close to me. I've always been in resistance of this part of my life. It's probably the most challenging time of my life that I've ever had, but also the most the moment where my life changed dramatically, when this man entered my life. So it's by far the most important time in my life. I wouldn't be where I am today without this individual. But it was also the most difficult. It was when I almost committed suicide. It was my darkest days, um, but also what I needed in order to be where I am today. So I want to share this story with you guys. It's going to be story time. So for the next 45, 50 minutes, or however long, I'm going to share this story with you. And for whatever reason, I'm trusting that the reason I'm sharing it is because many of you will receive something from it. Um, I don't know what, but I am holding the intention that something will um, be received by you from this story. So I want to preface this with this whole notion of twin flame. I've never been a fan of twin flames. I was never looking for my twin flame, and I don't believe that we are here to find our twin flame. I believe that a twin flame is contracted. I believe this is just my opinion. Twin flame relationships are not, in my opinion, romantic in the sense of like, oh my God, I found my twin flame and I'm forever going to be in love and we're going to roll off into the hills forever. Typically, if you meet your twin flame, it's contracted, meaning you contracted to meet them in this life. And for the sole purpose of massive transformation, and catalyst. Okay. Most of the time if you meet your twin flame, you are both on different frequencies. Okay. Very different frequencies. And you will, you will move into deep, deep, deep trauma and shadow work. So truly my belief around twin flames is that it is designed solely to shift you in a way that most humans can't shift you, and move you into like a massive catalyst. It is not, in my opinion, a absolute love of your life, romantic, best sex ever type of relationship from my experience and from other people's experiences that I know. So again, this is just my experience and what I've gone through, and I think that it is a massive program, and quite a shame that there has been so much created around finding your twin flame, how to find your twin flame. Everyone needs to find their twin flame. There's a lot of projection, there is a lot of attachment, there's a lot of expectation, and all it does is pull you out of you, right? The only love that we should be searching for is within ourselves, right? The truest, deepest love that you'll ever find is within yourself, and to believe that there is somebody out there that's going to be able to provide you with this match is detrimental, in my opinion. Just my opinion. Okay. That's not to say that there are not individuals out there that are ready to step into your life and show you the greatest love ever, because of course that is true. We are here to experience deep love within ourselves and deep love with other humans. That's one of the greatest gifts of being on this planetary in this on this world, is to be able to experience deep love with somebody else. But this notion that someone's going to come in and be your twin and bring you this magical out of this world love is a massive trap. Massive trap. Thank you so much for that super chat. Again, just my experience, but here it is. And this is a wild, wild story. So in 2010, I was with my boyfriend at the time. Um, we were we were in love. We were living together. He was an amazing man. And we were planning on getting married, and we were sort of trying to have a kid, but not really. But if it was like, oh, if we have a kid, that would be great. Um, and I had kind of um, sort of settled into this notion that I was going to be working in private equity for the rest of my life, that I was going to have a simple life. This was in 2010, and I was okay with that. Life was very easy, life was very simple. My relationship was very simple and beautiful. And I remember driving and being like, this is going to be my life. I'm going to settle into this. Knowing in the back of my head that I was here for something much bigger. But I truly was surrendering to this very simple life. The same time I was doing Bikram yoga, I went to a Bikram yoga class, and this man was teaching. His name was Joe. The moment I saw Joe, there was an immediate, I know you. There was an immediate connection, a soul connection. It wasn't necessarily like a love spark or anything like that. It was deeper. It was a deep, deep connection. And that was in December of 2010. I started continuing to take these Bikram yoga classes with him. We started to become friends. But I was still with my partner, living with my partner. Around 2000, and as we started getting to know each other, there was just this connection that I felt with him, um, that I'd never felt with somebody before. And again, it wasn't this like sexual chemistry where it's like I want to jump his bones. It was more of a deep, deep, deep soul family like I needed to be around him. I needed to be next to him. I needed him in my life. Around 2013, I believe it was 2013, he moved back to Chicago. Before he moved back to Chicago, 2013, I still drank a lot. 2013, we ended up going out for drinks the last night before he left to go back to Chicago to be with his girlfriend that he had met. So we had drinks, and of course, I got really drunk because that's what I do when I drink. I somehow just can't stop at one drink, so I end up having 7 drinks, and then I do really stupid shit. So we ended up drinking, we ended up, hanging out in the car all night talking, and then the next day he left for Chicago. And I remember feeling hardly knew this guy, Joe, but I remember feeling deep sadness, like it's almost like I was crying. I didn't want him to leave, I didn't understand why I felt these feelings for him. And while he was in Chicago for the year that he was in Chicago from 13 to 14, we texted all the time, all day long, at work, at home. Mind you, I had a boyfriend. I was living with my boyfriend. It was totally inappropriate what I was doing. And I ended up falling in love with Joe in that year. We spoke a lot on the phone. He started going through a breakup that he really quickly, as soon as he got there, he almost started, within a couple months, he ended up going through that breakup with the girl. So we ended up falling in love, but it was a very interesting love. So one night I told him I was in love with him on the phone, and he told me he was in love with me, and then he ended up moving back here in May of 2014. Was it May of 2014? What was it? No, 2013. So he moved to Chicago in 2012. He came back May of 2013. Now, Joe had a lot of narcissistic tendencies, and I was very unhealthy. I was basically an alcoholic. Um, I was I had super low self-esteem. I'd never really had a healthy relationship, and there was massive amounts of codependency. It was the most unhealthy relationship I've ever been in. He moves back. I skipped a part. I'm living with my boyfriend. Joe and I tell each other we're in love, and I have this great idea to lie to my boyfriend and go see Joe for the weekend in Chicago, like a couple weeks after telling each other that we love each other. So I lie to my boyfriend. I go spend the weekend with Joe. We sleep together, all kinds of stuff happens. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to end my relationship with with the boyfriend I had. So I come home after that weekend in Chicago, and it was in 2013. I hope you guys are still with me. And I tell my boyfriend literally that week that we have to break up. Broke his heart. He had no idea where it came from. One of the hardest things I've ever done. Broke his heart. He ended up moving out, and Joe moved back here from Chicago to California. And he didn't necessarily move in with me because it wasn't the right time for him to move in, but he was staying with me a lot. And so my boyfriend was in the process of moving out. Joe had just moved back, and Joe and I were inseparable and very, very codependent. Now, here's the interesting part about our relationship, Joe and I. The sex was never I can't even believe I'm telling you guys this story. The sex was never like an intimate we were never designed to have sex. It never felt right. It always felt weird, like we weren't supposed to be having sex. But I was so in love with him that I was like, "We're supposed to have sex." Like, how can I be so in love with this man and yet we're not having sex? We can't have sex. Like, sex is it was very awkward. It was like having sex with your brother. It was so messed up. But I loved him so much. I wanted that intimacy, but I couldn't have that intimacy with him. So when he came back, there was this really strange relationship that had formed where we couldn't be apart. We loved each other more than we had loved anybody else on the entire planet, but we didn't have that intimacy. We couldn't even cuddling felt weird. Okay? And mind you, I didn't know what was going on. I just know that I was in love with this man. I just broke up with my boyfriend and I'm in this. So what ends up happening is as soon as Joe comes back, it's I think May of 2013. There's a lot of messed up shit that happens. He's lying to me. He's messing around with other girls behind my back. There's all kinds of patterns that come up for me that have been in my life my whole life with men. Not trust I've never been able to trust men, right? I've never felt worthy of having, like, deep unconditional love, so I always expect a man to not give me 100% of themselves. I always have believed in relationships that they're going to find somebody else while they're in a relationship with me. I'm always waiting for them to leave. So these are all patterns that started playing out with Joe. And because this relationship was designed to heal my codependency, I was extremely codependent on him in a way that is I can't even explain it. I felt like I was going to die if he wasn't in my life. Like I didn't know how to be alone once I started this relationship with him. And as the months grew on and he was lying and being deceptive and manipulative and narcissistic, blaming everything on me, making me feel crazy, um, I was spending a lot of money on him. And if I didn't spend the money on him, he made me feel guilty for not spending money. It was really, really sick. Now, Joe and I, to this day, are very, very close and we're very good friends. We worked through all of this, but at the time, it was very abusive emotionally and mentally, in my opinion. Very. And I was in a trance. We would go through these stages where I would not talk to him. "You get out of my life. I don't want anything to do with you." And then weeks later, it was back to normal and we were back in each other's lives, but nothing had changed. And my mom was living here at the time, and she was very, very concerned. My entire family was very, very concerned with my relationship with Joe, very concerned. And they tried to talk to me many times. And when you are in something that is so codependent and so abusive, you can't see what people are telling you. Not only can you not see it, but you're in like a zombie state. It's very hard to describe unless you've been in it, but you literally I felt like I would die if I didn't have him in my life. So it was like, I don't care what any of you guys say, this I have to be in this. Was there a voice in me that said this isn't healthy? Was there a voice in me that said this isn't good for you? Absolutely. But it was quiet because from a much higher perspective, Joe and I contracted to be in this together. So we're going through this unhealthy back and forth, okay? We're drinking a lot, and we decide to get sober together. So again, we're super close at times, and then we separate and we don't talk to each other for a while, and then we come back together. So on a come back together moment, we decided to get sober together on September 9th, 2014, because I'd almost lost my private equity job because of my drinking and being with Joe. So we got sober together at the same time. And as we were getting sober together, something happened. We started to There was a clarity that began to happen, and we started researching um, twin flames. We started researching um, this awakening process that we were unconsciously going through. And I'll never forget this moment. Okay. It was 2014, and Joe was in my living room, and we were watching this YouTube video of like the waking up process with the twin flame, like what happens and the catalyst that happens and all these things. And I remember something awoke within me. It was like the light bulb went on, and I was like, "Holy shit. I'm here for something big, and it's time for me to get to work. And this man is the catalyst." And I remember I was so high, feeling like so in such a high frequency. I remember I had to get on the ground, and I had to grab the ground. Like I had to get grounded down onto the ground because I had been lifted into such a high frequency in that moment, as because I woke up. It was like phew, everything became clear. Everything made sense. It's like everything turned on in that moment, and my life from that moment on, my life had changed. And so this was, I don't know, at some point in the beginning of 2014, within about 3 months, I quit my job. Within about with After I quit my job, Joe and I traveled the world. I went to a Bikram yoga training session, and we began to start doing, he tried to, but I started focusing on, what am I here to do in this world? What is my purpose? What is my mission? Um, and yet we were still in this very chaotic, very messed up, very unhealthy, very codependent relationship. But because we loved each other so much, we didn't want to be apart from each other. But because I didn't want him to be with anybody else, he couldn't go and be with other women, even though what we had wasn't romantic, even though we tried to make it romantic, but we didn't want to be with anybody else. So we spent 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017 in this very back and forth, messed up, cataclysmic relationship. We were traveling the world. I ended up coming back home and working back at private equity. Joe came back with me, and it was around 2015. So not less than a year after I had that massive awakening in 2014, in 2015 was when I started to commit to the work I'm doing right now. And it was 2016 that I started my website and I quit my private equity job. And in the meantime, I'm in this very, very unhealthy relationship with Joe. And I'm trying to focus on me. And because Joe had very narcissistic tendencies, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my entire life, trying to bring yourself back to who you are when you are in a very toxic narcissistic relationship is one of the most challenging things ever. Because when you're in a toxic narcissistic relationship with someone, and I'm using that term because that is what he presented with. The characteristics that he presented were extremely narcissistic. Everything is about him, and everything is about how I am not showing up correctly, how I'm doing things wrong, how I'm selfish, how it's all about me. There is a feeling that you have in these relationships, you feel so guilty. The amount of guilt that I felt for what he was going through, I can't even explain it. Because what happened was around 2015, I started to hold firm boundaries with him and force him to go live on his own. I was holding firm boundaries and trying to force him to stand on his own 2 feet because I had been taking care of him. I had been paying for everything. I had been supporting him. There was such a heavy weight on me. But because I knew, here's the messed up thing, you guys. The whole time I was with Joe, I knew that this was a contract. I knew that he was my twin flame. I knew that this was on purpose. I knew that we agreed to this, and I knew that this was important, that this was something I chose to go through and that I'm going through. So there was this strange feeling of, "Get the fuck out of my life. I fucking hate you." And this is designed. This was designed to be this way. But I also knew that I needed to take care of myself, and I knew that whatever was coming up, it was for my growth. The interesting thing about Joe was he wasn't growing in the same way. He wasn't growing, and I had to keep going. I knew what I was here to do on the planet, and I knew that I couldn't do it with Joe around. He was, he had a very interesting life, and, he had tendencies of depression and suicide. And I always felt like I was holding him or carrying him. I felt responsible for him. And it's only m- maybe the last 2 years that that's finally gone away. And I don't even know if I would say finally, maybe 90% where I'm no longer feeling like I have to take care of him, like I'm responsible for him. And if you've never felt this, it's extremely challenging to explain this to somebody. My mom is the only person that really saw Joe and I go through this and was able to unconditionally watch me. It was the hardest thing she's ever had to watch because she had to watch a really, fucked up relationship play out for 5 years. I mean, basically 2013 to 2017. 4 years, 5 years. So as I was starting to step into my work and ended up quitting private equity and teaching yoga part-time and doing my work part-time, the more I started stepping into me and my voice and my power, the more I had to let him go. The more I couldn't have his energy in my room. The more I couldn't have his energy anywhere near me. And yet I was so codependent that I couldn't imagine not having him in my life. I didn't know how to survive without having him in my life, but I knew that I needed to let him go. And so starting to learn how to put boundaries down with this man, starting to learn how to make him upset and be okay with that. Watching the patterns play out, watching myself not play in those patterns any longer. Right? Not play in the patterns of, I'm going to swoop in and take care of you. I'm going to put myself aside Forget what I need, forget what I want, forget what's important to me. I'm just going to fall back into the patterns and take care of you. What do you need? But because I knew because it was my mission and my purpose to get to where I am today, I had to put it first. I had to put this first. And so for years, for the first couple of years, it was really challenging for Joe and I because we didn't understand what this was. We didn't understand how to navigate this because we wanted real love, we wanted relationship, we wanted intimacy, but we didn't want to not have each other in each other's lives when things were good. So we had to figure out, who are we to each other? What are we? And what ended up happening was 2016, I quit my job. I hope you guys are following me with this. I've never told the story, so it's like there's so much detail. But in 2016, I mean, there's so many stories I could tell about how mean he was, right? Like, he was so mean. And I know if he watches this, he knows how much I love him. And he knows how much our relationship was the catalyst to get me to where I am. But he was very, very mean to me. And there were moments, like, we lived in Dallas, Texas for 6 months while I was teaching. We were both teaching Bikram yoga. And I just remember being more depressed than I've ever have in my whole life. I was so miserable, and I wasn't accepted by him. He couldn't accept me. He couldn't just accept who I was. He was so unhappy and so miserable himself that he took everything out on me. And because I was so unhealthy and I was so miserable and I didn't understand anything, I allowed it. I allowed to be beat up emotionally and mentally, and it was I just remember crying on the phone to my mom, crying on the phone to my dad because I didn't know what to do. I felt trapped. I felt stuck. It was such a disempowering state. It was And again, unless you're in something like this, you can't really explain it, and nobody can come in and say, "Well, just leave them." It's like you don't understand. Like, it's not that simple when you're in something that it has a dynamic like this. Because it is for the sole purpose of your evolutionary growth. So it's like it's designed to bring you into deep shadow. It's designed to bring you into the depths of the darkness, so that you can move out of the fire, right? Like the phoenix, you can rise, which is exactly what happened to me, which is exactly what I did. But I could not be who I am today without every single moment of pain that I experienced with this man. So when we came back from and I started going back to the private equity firm, he was teaching yoga, we were living together, I quit my job, I started practicing or teaching yoga part-time, I started doing my work, I started holding firmer boundaries with him, and I was praying. I was praying every day that the universe pull him from my life somehow. This was in 16. I was praying. And this seems very weak of me, right? Like, why didn't you just choose to step out of it? I couldn't. I don't know what else to tell you. I truly didn't feel like I could. Um, 2016, praying daily. Please, God, take him from my life. Not physically, but take him from my life. I don't have the power. I can't do it. The beginning of 2017, I moved to Mount Shasta for my work to it was almost like I was zoning in and training. It was really a training when I moved to Mount Shasta. I was training my skills. I was all by myself in Mount Shasta, and I didn't have a lot of friends. Joe was really the closest person in my life, and Joe lived here in San Francisco Bay Area. So I would on the weekends, every couple of weekends, I would drive and spend the weekend with Joe, and he was home to me even though when I was with him, I knew it wasn't healthy. I knew it wasn't healthy. I mean, listen, we had amazing times together. We were best friends and we loved each other like a husband and wife would love each other, a partner would love each other. We had that kind of love. It wasn't a best friend love. It was a deep, deep love. But there was no intimacy, so it was messed up. But every weekend when I was with him, I knew that I needed to stop. It was like a drug. And I knew, I just didn't know how. I didn't know how. So continuing to pray. And all of a sudden, I believe it was in 2018. So this went on for a very long time. In 2018, in August, because I really felt like I was fucked. I swear to you guys, I felt like I was fucked. And this may seem like a very strange thing to hear from me now because I am so different. I am so different. Um, but back then, I felt screwed. I felt like I didn't know how I was gonna get out of it. And in 2018, because I prayed like I've never prayed in my life. And in 2018, he moved to Colorado. And I knew when he moved that I was gonna be free. Not that he was keeping me unfree, but I knew that this was the moment that I was gonna be able to truly have my life back. I knew it. I remember the moment I sat in the car and I knew and he told me he was moving. I was like, "This is it. This is when I get my life back. And this is when I catapult into what I'm here to do." But I wanna preface something. If it wasn't for Joe, I would still most likely I would still be with my previous boyfriend, Michael. Maybe I would have had a kid, still working at private equity, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. So I would never, ever, ever take back one moment with Joe. Not the pain, not almost killing myself, not the depressive episodes, not the moments of everything that I went through. I would never take one moment back because he is the reason I'm sitting here right now. And that's not a disempowered thing to say. That's the truth. Is it possible that something else would have happened and moved me into it? Sure. Of course. Because this is what I'm designed to do in this lifetime. This is what I contracted for myself to do, is the work I'm doing. So of course something else would have come in, but nothing else came in because Joe came in to be that catalyst. So regardless of what has ever transpired between him and I understand what it was for. So when he was in Colorado, there was still a very strong pull. He was I was still somebody that needed to take care of him. He texted all the time. There was still a very strong pull that I didn't want. And I didn't know how to say, even when he was in Colorado, I didn't know how to say, We need to stop texting." I didn't wanna break his heart. I didn't wanna hurt him, but I knew that even when in Colorado, even though we were starting to separate more and more, there was still a very strong, pull to us, and I was literally financially taking care of him when shit hit the fan, when he couldn't afford things, when he needed this, when he needed that, right? I was there for him in that sense as well, and I didn't wanna hold that burden. I didn't want to. So from 2017 to around 2020, I had a boyfriend in between then, that time, right? But from 2017 to 2020, I was learning for 3 fucking years, 2.5 years, I was learning how to set boundaries with Joe. I'm not kidding you. Even though he was living in Colorado, it took me 2 mother freaking years more, 2 plus years to pull apart and to pull apart and to pull apart. And it wasn't until he got, a very serious relationship in 2019 that we started separating, that we weren't texting every single day, that we talked every single day, we texted every single day. It was very unhealthy. So it was 2019 when he got a girlfriend that we started to separate because the girlfriend was like, "What the fuck is this? You guys are crazy. You guys have issues. This is not okay with me." Right? And so we started separating and separating and separating. And one of the reasons that it was challenging for me to be in this with Joe is he had bouts of suicidal tendencies. Um, I'm not going to share his story, but he's had some very insane, crazy experiences in his life that make my heart burst open, because of what he's gone through. But in 2020, was it 2020? I was in Mexico editing my book on the beach. And it was 2000 April of 2020. And I had been holding very firm boundaries. I remember saying to him, so he was living in Colorado and he was going to be traveling back to the Bay Area where I live to teach yoga. And when he told me this, okay, he told me he was coming back to teach yoga. He wasn't going to move here, but he was coming back to teach yoga. This was literally 2 years ago, not that long ago. He was going to come for a couple of months. I swear to you, my entire stomach dropped. I got so sick to my stomach, I freaked out. I started bawling. I started getting so angry because you have to understand, I finally felt after years that I was free, that I could create and build my life now, that I didn't have to worry. Okay. Now, granted, this is my thing, not Joe's thing. This is my beliefs. This is how I was experiencing it. Had nothing to do with Joe. I easily could have just kept holding the boundaries, whether he came or didn't come, but I didn't know how. I freaked the fuck out and I said, if I don't tell this man exactly what I'm feeling, I'm going to be in trouble. When he told me he was coming to San Francisco area to teach yoga for 2 months, I said to him, I cannot see you in person. I cannot see you in person. I will not see you in person. And I need you to know this. It's not healthy for me. And I can't do it. And I knew how badly that would hurt him. But I also knew that I could no longer do anything for him, meaning I'm going to do this to make him feel good. I'm going to do this to make sure he's okay. I'm going to do this even though I don't want to. I'm going to say this and take care of him even though I know it's not for my highest good. I'll just deal with it. I'll just be okay. I'm strong. I can get through it. I can navigate. I can figure it out. I can see him every once in a while. Absolutely not. It was an absolute no. I cannot physically, and I said to him, ever see you again. So he comes in March of 2020. I'm in Mexico, April of 2020, and I'm editing my book. And there is massive separation. We barely speak on text. He hardly texts me, right? And I feel amazing. I feel free. I feel like the greatest fucking thing. And he texts me one morning and this has happened twice where he's about to kill himself. And I'm not saying this because he's pretending like he was about to kill himself. And this was the second time. And so I was sitting on the beach, and this is why I needed massive separation from him because this is not something I need to hold. I don't need to hold his suicide. I don't need to hold his suicidal thoughts, but how do you hold that idea that I don't need to hold someone's suicidal thoughts when they're suicidal? It doesn't it doesn't you can't it doesn't make sense. Of course I'm going to be there for somebody. Of course I'm going to help him. Of course I'm going to convince him to stay. Right? But at the exact same time, I'm so fucking pissed and angry that I have to deal with this. So it's a really strange experience. The first time was a year earlier in 2019 when he tells me what his plan was and that I forgot what it was that he decided not to do it. But he tells me the whole plan. And that was in 2019. And so for 6 or 7 months I carried this fear that he was gonna be killing himself and that I was going to wake up one day and he was gonna be gone. It might have even been longer that I held that. When am I gonna get the call that he killed himself and his dog is waiting for me to go pick him up? It was horrible, horrible. There would be days where I would text him like, "Hey, how are you doing?" Feeling in the back of my head, did he kill himself? And if I didn't hear from him for, 24 hours, I literally lost my shit. I was like, "Oh my fucking god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Did he do it?" There was nothing fun about it, right? Like, it was horrible. It was just awful because there was just so much I felt like I was carrying. Anyway, 2022 in April, he texts me and he says, "I'm not doing good at all. I think I'm going to leave. I think this is it. I can't do it anymore." Now, mind you, I told him that I would never see him again in person. He's here in the Bay Area. You don't think that I had some sort of feeling of like, "Fuck, I'm part of his depression." I told him I would never see him again. What the fuck is wrong with me? I'm a bit bad person. But I knew I needed to. I had to. I had to for both of us. So I sit there with him. I'm at the beach in Mexico editing my book, and we're talking, and he's extremely suicidal. And we walk through it together, and I move him through it. And this was in April of 2020, I think. Or was it 2021? Shit, you guys, I'm so sorry. It was 2021. Oh my god, it was 2021. It was not 2020. It was last year. Holy shit. 2021. It was April of 2021. Okay, it was April of 2021 this happened. Damn. So wait, was it? Fuck. I wish he was here. He could tell me what year it was. It was 2021, I think. Anywho, I told him that because I was tapping into his guides, and I said, "Joe, there's something amazing coming right now for you. You don't deserve don't leave. The most miraculous life is waiting for you. You have to just tell yourself that you're done. You're done being miserable. You're done living in purgatory. You're done with all of the woe is me." Because he lived in victimhood. He always was a victim to life. And I said, you've got to start saying that you're ready to take on life. I don't know exactly what I said, but I was talking him through this. And a month later, he met a woman. And yesterday or the day before, they got engaged in Colorado, but they both live here in San Francisco. So a month after he almost killed himself, he met his now soon-to-be wife that he just got engaged with 2 days ago. And I remember when he was talking to me about his suicide and how much he was ready to go, he couldn't handle the pain of what he couldn't handle pain. He couldn't handle miserable, like, he couldn't handle waking up one more day. It didn't make sense to him. He didn't wanna do it. And I saw this moment. I saw the moment. I saw him with his wife. I saw him traveling in his RV. I saw him doing everything that he's doing now. I saw it a year ago when he wanted to kill himself. I saw it. And so I did everything I could to convince him of what's coming. But of course, he had to do it. He had to say yes. He had to say, I'm okay. And he did. And he truly is right now living the life that he has always dreamed himself to live. And he and I saw each other for the first time. I had to be ready to see him, and I had to know energetically when I was ready to see him. So I saw him finally. He had been here for over a year. I didn't see him because he ended up moving back here. I didn't see him. And he respected that. He never texted and said, "When do I get to see you? Why can't I see you? I can't believe," like, he respected that. And then about 2 months ago, we saw each other for the first time in almost 2 years, and it was with his now soon to be wife, his fiancée, and we had dinner, and it was extremely healing because there was no energetic contract any longer. I don't know if you've ever had this where you know that you have a contract with somebody, and once that contract has been fulfilled, there is no longer an energetic cord connecting you guys. And what I mean by that is that when you connect with that person again, or you see that person again, or you're with that person again, you don't feel a pull. You don't feel the same ways anymore. I'm not talking emotionally. Okay. I'm always going to love Joe. We always have this very strong, strong, strong bond forever. But it was clear, right? It was cut. And so it was like everything that was designed to be experienced by us was complete. It was all complete. Now, that's not to say that there are still remnants of things that I am continuing to break apart with him and I, because there are still certain things that I deal with him. But 90% of what we were contracted to experience is done. And so when people talk about twin flames, I think it's something that we have to understand is not in our egoic and personality control. And if you have called in a relationship like this, it's for massive, massive, courageous, cataclysmic shifting. And the interesting thing is the frequency on the planet right now and the frequency within our bodies doesn't require twin flame contracts anymore. It doesn't require it. We can do all of this transformation, all of this shifting, all of this cataclysmic stuff on our own now. Truly on our own. We do not need somebody or something to come in to do it for us because of what of the frequency that is now being held on this planet and in our own physical bodies. But for whatever reason, I was called to share this story, and there is so much in between the story that I didn't share because the stories, there's so many. There's so much that can be discussed around this 5-year relationship. But to this day, uh, Joe is the most, uh he had the biggest impact on my life. And it's also okay that he's not in my life in the same way anymore. We don't text very often, right? We have separate lives. We're always here to support each other. He's grown a lot. He's grown tremendously. I know that I could depend on him for anything if I needed it. I could call him at any moment, that he's always there for me. So to think about what we went through, what we navigated, um, and to be able to be where we are right now with love and respect and appreciation, I don't blame him for anything. He doesn't blame me for anything. I took self-responsibility for everything I went through and everything I experienced with him. When you start recognizing things from a bigger perspective, that most of what you experience in relationships, many of them, if they're potent, if they're insane, if they're roller coasters, they're contracted. And what that means is that you agreed to it. Your higher self, whatever you want to call it, agreed to it, most likely prior to incarnating, for the sole purpose of your evolution, for your soul growth. And so when you come in and start blaming the other person for all of these horrific things that they're doing to you, I get it. Trust me. I get it. But if you can also simultaneously see from a much larger perspective that this is a gift, this is a contract, you agreed to this. And can you start to see your own growth, the opportunity that you're giving yourself to be able to walk through insecurities, no boundaries, people pleasing, codependency, whatever it is, abandonment. What is coming up based on the unhealthy relationships that you find yourself in? Because they're not an accident and nobody's doing it to you. Even though when you're in it, it feels like somebody's doing something to you. The amount of anger and rage that I would feel for Joe, indescribable. The amount of anger and rage that I would have for myself, indescribable. The amount of anger and rage that I would have for the universe, undescribable. But I always knew. Actually, I take that back. I didn't always know. There were moments, even the last couple, in 2018, 2019, there were definitely moments where I was like, I'm fucked. Like, what if I'm stuck in this forever? You know? But there was a part of me that knew that would be impossible because this was for my evolution. This was for my growth. So there's no way that I wouldn't transform within it. But I had to go through pain. I had to go through uncomfortableness. I had to say things I didn't want to say. I had to break patterns. How the hell do you say to somebody who's been one of the most important people in your life that you don't ever want to see them again in person? Who says that? Me. Me. I do. We can't always be the polite, nice person because that's what we're supposed to do, because that's what the world tells us to do. Sometimes you have to be an absolute asshole in order to transform. Sometimes you have to put up such firm boundaries that everybody around you is going to think you've lost your mind. Sometimes you have to tell the people that you love the most to get the fuck out of your life right now. And that's okay. Sometimes we're so injured and so hurt and so burned that the only thing we know how to do is to say things that a lot of people would say, "Holy cow, I can't believe you did that," and hurt other people. I knew every time I would do something that would feel uncomfortable, shaky, painful, this could hurt him. I knew that it was for both of us. I knew it was for both of us because he wasn't going to do it. He would have stayed in this over and over. He would have continued to stay in the unhealthy pattern. You know? The thing about it, one last thing before I go, because the hour is up. What I can say is going silent is not what worked for me. Ignoring and pretending that what's in front of me isn't in front of me isn't going to work. You have to confront it head on. In my opinion, I had to speak my highest truth over and over with him. If you try to ghost somebody, ignore somebody, block somebody, I'm talking about somebody that's a big part of your life that you don't want in your life anymore. I'm not saying that blocking, ignoring, and deleting and all these things isn't healthy. I'm saying that if you aren't speaking your truth, you're missing the point. The whole purpose of whatever is unraveling in front of you is to speak your truth, is to put yourself first, is to be you. And a lot of people are going to be like, well, that's not love and that's not staying in your heart. It's like, listen, when you're in mother freaking transformation, when you're in shifting, when you're in shadow, when you're in the cocoon stage, the last thing you're thinking about is like, how do I keep my heart open? You're trying to fucking survive, right? And you're trying to survive without hurting as many people as possible. But I sure the hell was not going to be like, oh yeah, come on down, Joe. I'll see you whenever you want. No, abso-fucking-lutely not. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because when I did that, I was loving myself. When I did that, I put myself first. So this whole notion that people have around, having to um, hold this kind of like love around everything and everyone while you're moving through transformation, I mean, that's not possible. Because most of the time, if you're doing things or saying things that you don't really want to do, you don't love yourself. Period. If you're doing things and saying things that you don't want to do or say, you're not loving yourself. So all this love everyone and keep your heart open and blah, blah, blah is bullshit. Sometimes when you actually do what is best for you, you're going to hurt other people. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because it's probably for you and the other person's growth. I'm not saying go around and hurt people. That's not what I'm saying. I didn't intentionally try to hurt Joe. There's a difference. You don't go out and try to hurt somebody. If you are true to yourself, there is no intentional hurting of someone else. Very different. I never tried to hurt him by saying things to be mean to him. Oh, I'm going to say this to be mean. I'm going to say this to hurt him. Very, very different frequency. It had nothing to do with Joe. It had everything to do with what I needed. And if it hurt him, then that was for him to experience and go through and grow from. But it wasn't my intention to hurt him. It was my intention to give myself love and to do what I needed that was best for me. Very, very big difference. Pay attention to whether you are trying to hurt someone because you are hurt yourself. Pay attention to trying to please and love other people by ignoring yourself because you don't love yourself. The more we listen to ourselves, the more we love ourselves, the more we're able to listen to other people and to love other people, accept other people, do all of that. Okay. Think I'm done. There you go. Thanks for listening. If you're with somebody who's unhealthy, COPD, heart condition, etc., it's hard. Keeps you from leaving. I get it, Michael. It's hard. You got to navigate it with as much compassion and empathy for yourself and for the relationship. I don't have an answer. It's really, really difficult when we hold the burden of other people on our shoulders, and we don't want to hurt people. I get it. Trust me, I get it. There are still things that I do with Joe that I don't necessarily want to do, but I do it because it would feel painful if I didn't do it. So there are still cords there, little tiny little cords. So you just have to be gentle with yourself, you know? Yeah. I hope this was helpful in some way for all of you or some of you or any of you. Um, yeah, it's a crazy ride we're on. And the more that we can have compassion for ourselves and have compassion for other humans while we do this, the easier it will be to get through it, you know? But I truly, truly believe that relationships are the greatest gift that we have on this planet. The greatest gift. And I truly believe that just because you are in a contractual relationship with somebody that's extremely unhealthy doesn't mean they can't be in your life. It just means that you have to figure out how and if you want them in your life, and how do you want them in your life, and learning how to get there with them, you know? Joe will forever be in my life. It's just a matter of how I want him in my life and vice versa. All right, you guys, thank you for being here. Another episode of Untangled. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button because it moves the algorithm of the video up. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed so you'll know when I'm going live next week. Pass this video on to anybody you think may be needing to hear this information, struggling in a relationship, struggling with suicidal thoughts, struggling with romantic partners, in an unhealthy relationship. I don't know. Sometimes when people hear their own story reflected in somebody else, it it jolts them, it pops them, wakes them up. So, anywho, I'll see you guys next Tuesday, same time, 9 a.m. Um, Also, I'm doing a live guided meditation on this Friday. What's the date? The 10th, Friday the 10th at 3 p.m. California time in my online community, Evolve. So it's going to be a really powerful guided meditation. The link to join if you want is down below. It's the Evolve online community. And yeah, thanks for all your love and support. Be gentle with yourself. I'll see you next week. Mwah.